The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Brock Boeser is recovering from a blood clot in his leg, and Kyle Bhawan, man oh man, it happened. He's recovering from vocal reconstruction surgery.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
A happy Monday, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks, and also a Canucks writer currently with a Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into today's episode, we got to thank you for tuning into Locked On Canucks. You want to know why? Because it is your Canucks every damn day. We're part of that Locked On Podcast Network. They're doing the most for sports fans across the world. And for our show, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go subscribe and like this video on YouTube. And on the podcast side, go leave a 5-star review. Why don't you? Also got to let you know we're not here without you, but we ain't here without the sponsors. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today might be the unofficial kickoff of the Canucks season. They are all golfing at the Jake Milford annual tournament. And that means that a few players got to speak to the media. And we got a quote from Brock Boeser that we want to touch on today, because Brock Boeser is saying that he has a lot to prove. Does he have a lot to prove? What is his season going to look like? What does his next contract look like? And what will happen here with the Vancouver Canucks? Let's touch on all that. We'll also touch on Daniel Sprong versus Nils Hoglander. What do their two seasons look like, and who has the leg up for a top 6 role? Could they both have top 6 roles? Let's talk about all that coming up here on Locked On Canucks. But before we do that, man, oh man, I didn't want it to happen, but you did it, buddy. Kyle Bhawan, my co-host, got vocal reconstruction surgery and got the neck brace on. Holy smokes, man. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I had to do it. I had to do it for your children. Think about it, man. Christmas is coming up in a couple of months, and those reviews are piling in. We almost got to a 3-star rating, and that wasn't going to make us a paper, man. I want you to bring the bacon home, especially on Christmas. We need those reviews to go up, but at the end of the day, I couldn't take the chance, and here I am, man, recovering from surgery. It feels good. Getting used to the voice. My girl don't like it. She don't like it. She thinks I'm a different man, but I'm still the same Kyle Bhawan. All right. Anyways, Brock Boeser. Is he the same Brock Boeser post blood clot? Because it was kind of curious to see him bring that up and say that he has a lot to prove during the first round of media availability this season. Trevor, did you find that interesting?
I did find that interesting because basically he told reporters, and it was my colleague Noah Strang at Daily Hive who tweeted this out, that he's not planning to negotiate a contract at all during the season here. And in fact, he's going to wait probably until the offseason to negotiate a contract. And he said, he followed that up with, I think I have a lot to prove after the blood clot. And my first reaction was, what? Because you look at this guy in the playoffs, and you could argue he was the most consistent Vancouver Canuck that entire postseason, right? We didn't get the best version of Quinn Hughes. We clearly didn't get the best version of Elias Pettersson. You know, JT Miller was up there as well. But Brock Boeser, in my mind, might have been the most consistent Canuck for his entire postseason run. And, absolutely tragic that he didn't get to play Game 7. Who knows what kind of an impact he would have made in Game 7. But I felt like during the playoffs, he not only did he prove himself, but he cemented himself as, again, a bona fide top-line winger in the NHL, a guy who shows up in the big moments. And, I shouldn't be surprised as well, right? This is a guy who is the longest tenured member on this team now. He's been around a long time. He's been here for a lot of losing. You think he should be motivated to bring in his A game. But, Brock Boeser, I think there is something to prove in the sense that, can he do it again? That, to me, is the big question. He hit 40 goals last season, pushing 80 points, stellar playoffs. If he does that again, he's going to be in line for a big contract, and I do want to give some predictions on that later on. But in terms of the blood clot itself, probably a bit harsh on himself to say that he's got a lot to prove, unless there's something going on health wise that we don't know about. All we know as onlookers is that he's healthy and ready to go. So I don't know. Curious what your thoughts were when you heard Brock Boeser talking about that, and what do you think hurt more, Brock Boeser's blood clots, or are you getting your voice box tinkered with, man? Because that can't be any fun.
We'll talk more about my surgery after the first segment, because it was really interesting. I read a lot of nice comments, a lot of nice reviews. I was regretting the decision, but I didn't want to pay the cancellation fee, okay? For real. Again, we had a 3-star podcast going on there for a couple months. The paper wasn't coming in. Anyways, Brock Boeser talking about this whole blood clot thing and how he has a lot to prove. And I don't want to say it was alarming. I just feel as if this guy's a humble dude. He knows what's on the line. It's a really fascinating injury too, for real, if you think about it, because maybe he's referring to the fact that players post that type of procedure, that type of injury, for lack of a better word, may not play the same because of the fear. And one thing that Brock Boeser brought to the table last year that wasn't really clear in years past was his compete level. And that's what made Brock Boeser a way better player, a way better playoff player. And are we going to get that Brock Boeser back? And maybe that's what he's bringing up. Like, he wants to prove it to the Canucks fans and the Canucks brass and the hockey world that he ain't scared of getting another blood clot. Because, again, that's a very, very scary injury, right?
Yeah, and I guess the thing in terms of something to prove with the blood clot is that, we've seen NHLers, it derailed their career more or less, right? Like, I think of Thomas Volkun and I think it was like Yasin Cullimore, some of the older guys back in the day. I mean, it's a fairly rare injury, but it does happen. But we've also seen guys like Steven Stamkos get blood clots, come back, and just be exactly the same player that they were before. So there's really kind of evidence on both sides of it, right? And it is a scary injury because it can be, life-threatening in some cases if it doesn't get dealt with. And obviously, life matters much more than the game of hockey. But again, with Brock Boeser, I guess we just have to see what he can do. But to say he's got something to prove because of the blood clot to me was just a little strange, to be honest with you, because, again, he had the best season of his career. Again, for me, it's, can he replicate the same success? Can he be a 40-goal scoring two-way force? Can he be impactful on the power play? Because the funny thing about, Brock Boeser last season was that, he had a career best season on the power play, but the Canucks power play was really not that good overall. I mean, Boeser had 16 goals, 25 points on the power play. Both of those are career highs, but the Canucks power play just didn't look very good, right? So I think there are a multitude of factors at play with Brock Boeser, but I don't know, Kyle, like when you look at the stat line, like 40 goals, 73 points, do you think Brock Boeser can match those totals, or do you think it's more like that he maybe regresses a little bit?
Oh, no, I think he can surpass those totals 100%. We're talking about UFA Brock Boeser playing with JT Miller, playing on a better power play, playing on a Taka team that, coming from the mouth himself, the head coach, right, with that voice saying that he wants to be more offensive. And again, emphasis on the whole UFA thing. It matters. It really does. We're about to see the best offensively from Brock Boeser, but Trevor Beggs, am I not onto something when I say that we need Brock to continue to be a high competitive two-way force? Because what we saw in the playoff from him was impressive, and it helped us win games, and it allowed him to be on the ice for 20 minutes. And you know what I'm saying? And be competent and then strike offensively. We need this guy to compete. And then going back to his comment about the whole blood clot and having something to prove, I wonder if there's some doubt within the organization, or maybe just in his mind, right? Maybe he's in a little bit of a insecure spot where he thinks that, again, some people don't think he can try as hard as he did last year, because going into last season, there was like this notion that Brock Boeser knew how to get into the soft areas, intelligent, cerebral. That's when he's at his best. But again, we saw a whole other player, and that was, again, a two-way force. I'm not going to call this guy a Mark Stone. He wasn't that guy, but his compete, really huge. And I saw something last night because I was going through it. Again, when you have one of these surgeries and you're trying to appease to the Canucks fans and you're not trying to hold Trevor's families back, you get emotional. And I was watching the highlights from Game 4 against Nashville, and prior to Lindholm scoring the overtime winner, There was the guy who scored the hat trick in regulation, Brock Boeser, breaking up a play in the neutral zone, a minute into his shift, and then keeps his motor going in the offensive zone to keep the play alive. 20 seconds later, boom, bam, Garland gives it to Lindholm, and we win game 4. That's the Brock Boeser we need, the high compete, cerebral assassin, and a two-way force. And I hope we get that guy back, because how did he get injured again? Well, he blocked the shot. We need Brock Boeser blocking shots.
Yeah, exactly. And again, he did a bit of everything for the Canucks last season, almost everything except kill penalties. With Brock, sometimes I do wonder that his goal scoring totals might be dependent on who they play with, right? Or who he plays with. I think we all expect him to play with Miller, despite me saying I like to see him with Pettersson. But if you got like a Daniel Sprong or Nils Hoglander on that line, maybe Boeser's setting up more plays. But if you got a Danton Heinen on that line, I think Brock Boeser scoring a lot of goals. But we did see last season, he had the urge to get to the dirty areas more than we've ever seen him do so before. And that was a big reason why he was able to score 40 goals. Now, I'm going to ask you one more question before we get back to break. If Brock Boeser matches or surpasses the totals from last season, what do you think his next contract looks like?
I think with the Canucks, he's not making more than $9 million. I think I know we didn't see this with Pettersson, different scenario, players younger, center, elite center, blah, blah, blah. But I feel as if Boeser would be the type of guy to take, I wouldn't say like a Sam Reinhart type of discount, but maybe in his head, maybe in his heart for the Vancouver Canucks, he'll take one of those those tax-free type of contracts that some of those players take, in Florida and whatnot, and he would do that in Vancouver. So if he scores, in my opinion, I think this guy might get 50 goals. In fact, I'm guaranteeing it right now. I think Brock Boeser is a 50-goal scorer. I don't think there's a more motivated player in the National Hockey League, considering everything this guy's gone through in life. And then see how his career season ended last year. Not fair to a guy that's had a lot of those things happen to him in his life. I feel like as if he comes in motivated, he has that UFA power. He scores 50 goals with one of the best playmakers in the league, a.k.a. JT Miller, and that line finds a new form of chemistry, a new form of elite offensive assassin-like ability. And Brock Boeser scores 50 goals, but he takes a discount to stay in Vancouver. And if he doesn't take a discount, here are two things that may happen. This may scare you, but let's say Karamaki is playing good in the AHL. Maybe he shows well in the NHL when he gets a chance. I wouldn't be surprised if the Canucks trade Brock Boeser at the deadline. Considering how many... honestly speaking, man. Honestly speaking. You want Brock Boeser to go for nothing? This team's traded a lot of first-round picks, man. It's going to be a fascinating year, but we're going to get the best out of this guy.
I think there's a sub 2% chance that they trade Brock Boeser at the deadline if they're in a playoff spot. They're going to view Brock Boeser as their own rental if they are unable to come to an agreement with him, or they don't think they're going to sign him. With Brock Boeser, I do look at his contract and look at the cap sheet for next season. I mean, the Canucks are not going to be in a good cap situation entering the 2025-26 campaign, right? The OEL buyout jumps. So basically between right now with Mikheyev and OEL, they're paying about $3 million, a shade over $3 million in terms of buyout retained money. That's going to go up to $5.4 million next season between the OEL and Mikheyev buyouts and retention there. So, and there's not a lot of money coming off the books either. So, I mean, I think Brock Boeser, the number starts at 8, but I don't think it's going much above 8 if he stays in Vancouver, regardless of what he does this season, because the Canucks are going to have to make some pretty drastic moves to keep him around. Otherwise, on the other side, a couple of other wingers who don't have the same kind of lofty expectations as Brock Boeser, but two guys who have similar roles and going to be fighting for spots in this top 6, Daniel Sprong and Nils Hoglander. Let's talk about these players on the other side in terms of who has the better season and who gets the better opportunities. All that coming up on the other side. But before we get to that, let's shout out our friends over at FanDuel. All right, you know the deal. FanDuel, there's no other place that you should be going if you want to bet on sports. And FanDuel, they're now stepping up their game, okay? Because now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Now, Kyle and I, hockey guys first and foremost, but the NFL was back. We're big NFL guys too. And Kyle, not only did you mess with your voice box over the weekend, but Jordan Love is now out with an injury. Are you okay, man?
It was tough, man. Laying in bed, recovering from surgery, thinking about Jordan Love a lot, but I'm really happy that his injury is only 3 to 6 weeks long. It gives this young Packers team an ability or a chance to, try to win games in the early part of the year against some weak teams by being a defensive team, okay? For real. Let's not always rely on the offense there in Green Bay. Let's see if we can prove the doubters wrong and get Jordan Love back with a decent record, okay? For real. That's the goal. It is what it is. It's not the end of the world, Trevor.
Not the end of the world. Well, I don't know, man. Me not hearing your sexy voice might be the end of the world, but more on that on the other side. But for now, in terms of FanDuel, go make sure you go visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook.
Okay, we back on this episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Kyle Bhawan. That right there is Trevor Beggs. One love to all the comments on YouTube. Hey, one love to all the positive reviews. Yes, the positive reviews on the podcast side of things. I was reading this in bed, again, recovering from the surgery, somewhat regretting my decision. But again, we had a 3-star podcast for a couple weeks, and the money wasn't coming in, and I couldn't pay the cancellation fee. Okay, it is what it is. Again, Christmas coming up. I have to be budgeted my finances, okay? But this comes from Evelyn. Listen to this, okay? Trevor almost made me cry. I love listening to this podcast with my boyfriend, and he loves you guys. Awesome talking points. You guys seem like great guys. Keep up the good work. Team Kyle. And she said Team Kyle, not because it's Trevor versus Kyle here. It's never that. Me and Trevor pretty much have the same mom. What? We're brothers, okay? But she's saying that because Trevor Beggs read this comment that changed my life, okay? Remember, this comes from Alex Small Beep. Small what exactly, okay? He's saying that Kyle Bhawan picked the wrong field to work. You constantly sound like you have a mouthful of helium. Please spare us all and retire from podcasting. And you know the deal, okay? Kyle Bhawan, I'm not only loyal to the fans of the show, the people who appreciate me, love me. I'm loyal to all Canucks fans, okay? I'm home with that West Coast bias, okay? I love all my neighbors. So I had to do this with the city of Vancouver, man. The hockey season's about to start. I got the surgery. My girlfriend hates me. Hopefully all the Canucks fans love me. It is what it is. And I'm weak. Okay, I'm insecure. I'm soft. And instead of therapy, I chose to get voice surgery.
Yeah. I just hope you stop punching yourself in the throat. That was a pretty scarring phone call there. Speaking of scarring, Nils Hoglander, man, had a career season and then gets to the postseason and the guy turned into a ghost, man. You think you're going to be hyped up for the biggest games of your life, and then you absolutely kind of lay an egg in the postseason. Now in Vancouver, you got Daniel Sprong coming in, a very similar type of player to Nils Hoglander, a bit more playmaking to his game. But the interesting thing about these two players is analytically, they've been two of the most efficient players in the NHL offensively over the past couple of seasons. Daniel Sprong right up there in terms of that points per 60 at even strength. Just finds a way to always get on the stat sheet. And Nils Hoglander, 24 even strength goals, one of the best goal scoring rates per 60 in the NHL last season. Now, Kyle, moving forward, of the two players, which do you think has a bigger impact for your Vancouver Canucks this season?
Nils Hoglander. Yo, what's with all this disrespect for Nils Hoglander, a very young player still in the National Hockey League? I can't stand it. And what's this whole notion that Kiefer Sherwood just completely knocked Nils Hoglander out of this lineup? That's complete BS. Now, Nils Hoglander has to become, again, a more two-way player. Okay, for real. He's got to be just good everywhere. He's also got to be more consistent offensively, okay? He needs more flair in his game. I hope Rick Tocchet's whole mantra about opening things up allows Hoglander to just be himself a bit more, because that matters too, okay? But man, oh man, even if this guy has to get a lot better, I hate the disrespect. I hate the disrespect that Nils Hoglander is getting. And it's coming from guys like Trevor Beggs. And Satir Shah, man, that's Kiefer Sherwood, 30-goal scorer. Kiefer Sherwood, Niels Hoglander, odd man out, possibly. Come on, Trevor. What's going on here? Daniel Sprong versus Niels Hoglander? What are we doing here?
Well, I think it's as simple as this. Niels Hoglander doesn't have the full trust of his coaching staff yet. Look, we see Niels Hoglander in Vancouver. I think both of us believe in Hoglander more so than Daniel Sprong. And between the two, Hoglander still has more upside as well. You know, he's the guy who's a lock for a roster. Daniel Sprong isn't even a lock for the roster right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably going to make it. He's probably going to make it. But, Niels Hoglander, again, the fact that he was healthy scratch in the playoffs and not play his best hockey, I mean, I think he's going to take that experience and learn from it, much like he took the AHL demotion and learned from it the year prior. Mm-hmm. And, going into the season, I am curious who gets the spot alongside Elias Pettersson, because interestingly enough, Niels Hoglander, one of Pettersson's best friends on the team heading into the season. Now, he had to earn the opportunity to play with Pettersson. Almost didn't earn the opportunity to play with Pettersson come playoff time. Was, Ilya Mikheyev got the shot ahead of Niels Hoglander in Game 7, which, again, says something about Hoglander. But Daniel Sprong also pretty good friends with Pettersson as well. So I could get the feeling that one of these guys is going to play with Pettersson to start the season. I'm not convinced which guy is going to start the season there. And I honestly think it's going to come down to who has the better training camp between both players.
I wonder if there was a conversation within the brass of that organization, right? In the boardroom. Do we need to bring someone in to light a bit of fire consistently in Hoglander's, I was going to say in Hoglander's ass, but on Hoglander's ass, okay? Okay? The other one's a little dangerous. Anyways, I wonder if that was the case, because I feel as if this organization, again, a lot of Swedish pedigree here. They spent a lot of time developing this guy. I know Alvina Rutherford didn't draft Hoglander, but again, he's been here for a long time, and you've seen this guy be a bit of a POS, a guy who can get under your skin, a guy who can be somewhat of a Rick Tocchet player if he gets it all together. Now, speaking of Rick Tocchet, speaking about what you just said, right? Hoglander back in the day gets healthy scratched against the Oilers in that playoff series. But what does he do when he gets back in the lineup? Doesn't he score in Game 6? Oh, he does. He does. Doesn't he almost score in Game 5 before JT Miller scores to win it? Didn't he? I feel like he almost scored in the third period, but he hit the post. Oh yeah, he did. So he almost scores in Game 5. He scores in Game 6, and then Game 7 comes against the Oilers. Brock Boeser gets hurt. And what happens? Ilya Mikheyev gets promoted and Hoglander gets demoted. Yo, Rick Tocchet's got to step his ish up. For real. It's just the truth. And you talk about this whole philosophy of playing more offense. Well, lean into guys like Hoglander instead of guys like, well, I know you don't have this guy anymore, but Ilya Mikheyev or PDG or Sam Lafferty, because that's what was happening. Those guys were getting consistently more chances within that Game 7 game than Niels Hoglander. Whose fault is that?
It was a bizarre decision in a do-or-die game. And to your point, Kyle, Niels Hoglander wasn't trusted during the playoffs, and it does have me questioning heading into the season who gets the bigger opportunity. But let's make no mistake, it should be Niels Hoglander.
It should be.
That being said, both players almost identical points per 60 last season. Niels Hoglander, 2.37 points per 60. Daniel Sprong, 2.36. Both were top 50 in terms of goals per 60. These guys are both elite offensive talents with deficiencies in their game. But I think you bank on Niels Hoglander to be better and to improve more so than Daniel Sprong, who we just don't know as much about in Vancouver. Let's wrap up the show on the other side with your comments. And I got a few more questions about Kyle and his new transition to a different voice. Man, this is weird, man. This is weird. I want your old voice back, man. I'm going to come over to your house in the middle of the night, and I'm going to go tinkering in your throat, man.
Oh.
All right. Coming up on the other side, Kyle Bhawan, Trevor Beggs, Locked On Canucks.
We back, and we doing this, giving you a 5-star podcast. Yes, Locked On Canucks. Kyle Bhawan, Trevor Beggs, doing your thing. Speaking of which, hit the like button, subscribe to the show, and leave us a podcast review. Getting closer and closer to Christmas. Trevor's son, right? Getting closer and closer to the age of 2. Before you know it, he'll be 10. And that means he's going to want a PS6. He is. And Beggsy, I made the joke last week. It wasn't a joke, though. I was literally scared of that book reading family of yours, right? And your 2 kids who are already efficient readers, geniuses. They don't got smartphones. They got books over there, the Beggsy household, okay? I was scared of them reading the comments and the reviews of this show and all this blah, blah, blah about my voice sucking ass and my voice being the worst voice in the city and how I'm holding Trevor back and all this. It got to me, but not because I'm entirely weak, but because I love your family and I love your kids. I want to be the best uncle ever, and I want them to know that I made this change for them. You understand?
I understand, man, but I want to say it was probably a bit of an unnecessary change. I mean, man, I want the old Kyle back, man. Unbelievable. What's going on right now? Here's a comment from last week. Okay, I missed it during the show, but I wanted to read it now. Popeye Sailor saying, "I think Trev is cool and all, but Kyle is the reason I go on here and to the Discord." So, Kyle, there's an argument here where some people are saying, "Oh yeah, Kyle's bringing Trevor down," and blah blah blah. That I'm holding you back, man. You are Locked On Canucks, man. Come on. Unbelievable.
Again, I read those comments, and you know me. I'm one of those people, man, especially with this whole making art thing, right? You got to do it for the people who are already there, not for the people who are hating and who are not there or who don't choose to consume your art or whatever the F this is. I know. And I read all those nice comments coming in over the last week. It was nice. But again, we had a 3-star podcast, bro. I did not have the paper to pay for a cancellation fee. And my dad always taught me not to be a quitter. Do the math. Had to do it. Anyways, more comments, okay? More comments. This one's a little mean from the top. But I'm going to say it anyways because Brock Boeser's alive. He's healthy, and he's strong. And he's recovered, okay? Bob Luger saying Brock's offense has clouded up at times. Hope he brings the flow consistently. I know. Shouldn't be making jokes about injury, but just that whole sentence, poetic in a dark way. Okay, bring the flow consistently. Trevor, you asked me how much is Brock going to get paid, blah, blah, blah. I told you that I think he's going to be a 50-goal scorer. I said this on Friday, too. Go check it out. It was the last episode with my real voice. I said there's a lot of room on the table for Brock and JT to have more flair in their chemistry, in their game. Right now, they're bump and grind. Let's tap in a goal. All goals are the same. Doesn't matter how they look. Let's just get gritty with it and score some bingos. How about this season? They do that, but they do the whole 1-2 punch thing. Let's go bar down a couple times. Let's make some no-look passes. For real. Remember that goal? I think it was the first goal of Game 4. Ironically, we just talked about Game 4 earlier, but Brock Boeser's first goal. Susie to Miller in the middle of the ice. Miller swings it over to Brock Boeser, one-timer in the back of the net. More of that, more flair. And I think if that happens, not only does Brock Boeser become more consistent offensively, but again, JT Miller's point totals and his swagger go up to another level too, because again, there's more sexiness between those two that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think that, again, that offensive creativity was there definitely in spurts throughout the season. But really, to me, Brock Boeser elevated his goal scoring by crashing the net. I'm kind of curious if they can get more of that sniper Brock Boeser on the power play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, we look at Sam Reinhart, and he just absolutely was burying goals in the power play. Ironically, though, a lot of them kind of coming from in front of the net, just like Boeser did this last season. I want to shout out a couple comments from G. Ellis here. This one on Brock and then one about your voice. G. Ellis saying Brock will score 35 or so and then want $9.5 million.
Damn.
I want to think that's not the case. If Brock Boeser truly wants to stay in Vancouver long term now, obviously it's been a bit of a tumultuous history in terms of him requesting a trade, not being able to be traded, and then saying he wants to stick around, and then boom, bam, has a career season last year. But Sam Reinhart, obviously a career season as well, 57 goals, scores the Stanley Cup game-winning goal. His extension was only worth $8.625 per season. $8.6 million per season. So a guy who could have commanded 10 plus in the open market took a discount to stay in Florida. I do think Brock Boeser is going to have to do something similar again. We don't know what it looks like necessarily, but just in terms of the Canucks cap situation, it's going to be hard to pay this guy much more than $8 million.
Oh, Yeah, 100%. And I wonder if, again, playing alongside JT Miller, a guy who's only making, 8.5, if I'm correct. I wonder if that allows him to take somewhat of a discount too.
Yeah.
For real. And if the Canucks have more success this season, whether it be go to the second round, go to the third round, but again, he hears the roar of the building, that playoff experience, they're building on something. You look around the league, like, where is he going to have a better chance to win? If the Canucks do it again this season, again, take another step, this whole notion about the Canucks being stacked and being a threat, it's going to be really real. So this is the place you want to be. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a shorter term deal. I know I'm dreaming here, but I feel as if Brock has a lot of love, ironically, for Vancouver, considering the case, 17 months ago when he's asking for a trade and whatnot. But I think this guy's a lot of admiration for the city of Vancouver.
Yeah, I think so, dude. Maybe I'll chuck it out right now. Maybe this guy signs an identical contract to JT Miller. I know a couple of years down the road, but 7 years to $8 million bucks.
But okay, Trevor.
I think that would be a good deal for Boeser. Definitely a good deal for the Vancouver Canucks if we can replicate the same success. A couple more comments here before.
Okay, yeah. Comments about my voice, dude. It is what it is. I don't know what to do. How do I get it back? What do you want me to do? I'm pretty sure they put put my old voice box in like the green bin, compost bin. Okay, it is what it is. But Trevor, I want to ask you this because you really didn't answer it. Let's say he does have a strong season. Let's say he does. He's doing his thing, but he doesn't sign. This team that's traded all these assets over the last 2 seasons. Do you see the Canucks consider trading Brock Boeser at the deadline if he doesn't sign an extension presented to him? Because A, it makes sense, and B, Rutherford and Alvin are the ones at the top calling the shots, and those guys are pretty ruthless.
Again, I think I answered in the first segment, but I have a very hard time seeing it happening. Unless the Canucks absolutely have a terrible season, and that's like the worst case scenario, and then they got bigger things to worry about than Brock Boeser. If the Canucks are good and Brock Boeser is not extended, they're keeping him as their own rental. I'll bet money on that right now.
Okay. Fair. That's fair. I like the way you said that. Okay, you're a smart guy. They're keeping him as their own rental. Beggsy, that's why you're here, man.
Yeah, and there's a comment too about me. The FanDuel ad read. Some people are not a fan of them. I mean, hey, we got to do what we can to get paid. Someone in the comments saying I've convinced their family member to gamble. Look, if you got gambling problems, it's no joke, man. In the disclaimer of every episode, there's a 1-800 hotline you can call. So make sure that if you have gambling problems or you know someone has gambling problems, go get the help. Okay. I like to dabble here and there, but you got to have your bankroll. Only bet so much, and if you lose, stop for a while. It's all good. Sports will be back.
Yep, 100%. 100%. How about this one from Disrespectful? Pretty sure they have pills to change Kyle's voice back. Just saying. If they do, maybe I'll consider it. I don't know. I don't know if I can go back and forth here. My girlfriend already hates it. And some of our fans right now hate it. Trevor, why don't you stop me? Why don't you just stop hanging out with your family every single day and come to my house because you know I'm going through it? Just talk to me like a friend. Anyways, man.
I'm gonna have to come over this week and do something about that voice, man. It's pissing me off, and I haven't popped a stiffy this whole episode, which usually does happen when I record Locked On Canucks. And we'll see if I can come over and fix your voice later this week. Get my boners back, but for now we got to sign off. So shout out to the everydayers, the occasional listeners, the first-time listeners, the new subscribers, and those of you who join us on the live show on YouTube, wherever you're listening, whenever you're listening. We appreciate the hell out of you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks. Again, the season unofficially kicked off today, so we got lots more season preview stuff around the corner, touching all the news, the rumors, all that good stuff. But for now, we're getting out of here. I'm Trevor Beggs. That guy is Kyle Bhawan, I think. And you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
I'm still the same man. My body, my choice.